Oh, I've got to admit them all from the lobby. Oh, when it gets closer, I just thought I'd just check if it was Elizabeth on or not, and it's not. So I'll just get all my... So I won't let them in until... Yeah. It's set. So... Hi, Elizabeth. How are you? You're on mute. Yep.
Thank you. I'm on tenterhooks about this.
So am I. Yeah, but I'm, you know, I've actually bear in mind this is our first time, so many people online. We'll see if the format works. We can only have a go. Yeah.
Yep,
this is Jane
Jane.
Clark. She's going to help us. Hopefully, people when they put their hand up to talk, they've got to unmute themselves.
Yes.
So so we'll all.
Why don't you encourage people to put their hands up and speak, but they can also put comments in the chat box.
Okay, right. No worries. But we can just see how it goes, and
yep.
I'll start letting them in 2 minutes before the 3 o'clock, and we'll be fine. We'll be fine because
there's no script. That's all.
Yeah, but we just we're supposed to be asking them for their input, aren't we? We're trying to get them talking.
Yeah. Trying to get them.
So it's which I sent you what I was going to say and introduce you, and
I'm seeing all that, so we'll just go with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I because if you make it to another information session, it's not people interacting. Yeah. Yeah. So have you met Jane, Elizabeth?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, now this is our beautiful commercial assistant who's just started with us. So she's
we can really do with the hand, can't we?
Oh, we certainly can, and she's great. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's good.
Yeah. So
all right. Well, I mean, once we start, we'll be we're going to record it, aren't we? Yeah.
We certainly are, and then we can just learn of how to do it well every couple of months. Yeah. So we'll just we'll wing it, and
yeah, that's right. All right, good. Iterative process. That's good. So it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, and a lot of people have accepted it. So I think people do want to get together, and this is the idea.
Yeah, that's right.
Recording and translate started automatically per meeting organizing settings. Yes, I did set it as that. All right, so I will start admitting them, I suppose.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello, Bev. You've been waiting in the lobby for ages.
Hi. Just hang on a sec. Oopsie. Just hang on.
Chris, are you going to, can we see you, what you look like? That would be great. Oh, there you are. Hello? What about Chris Unicorn, Heritage?
I've got to find myself now. Hold on.
It's good.
Hello. Sorry about that.
It's good.
I'll just leave it another couple of minutes. We don't know how many people are going to come on this and whether it'll work, but we're going to have a go because we'd like to get to all the village managers and compliance officers together.
Yes. Chris Unicombe says that they've accessed a computer without a camera. That's a likely story, isn't it? Next time, Chris. That's all right. Good, good, good.
Okay, we'll just leave it 1 more minute and then we'll start, yeah?
That's right, good, yeah. I think we should start on time just so that we, establish the situation that we'll always start on time and finish on time.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
For all the good people who, came in on time, I think that's great. They don't want to be hanging around. Punctuality is a virtue, Deborah.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Catherine. Hi. Good, thanks. I have to work from home because I've got all the tradesmen in my house on my roof and everything. Yeah.
Good on you. All right. We're just letting everybody in and Deb will start on time. So.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. Thank you. No, we can't hear you.
Yep. Sure. I don't. Yeah. I'll take my camera and all that off. I'll just listen then.
No, that's all right.
Deborah,
I'm just saying, Deborah's going to start now. That's all.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. Great.
Okay. So welcome to our first bi-monthly meeting. Obviously, bear in mind this is our first one, so whether the format will work is, we'll see how it goes. But the idea is that we give you 3 topics and we all discuss our experiences with them. So first of all, the Retirement Living Council acknowledges the traditional owners of the country throughout Australia. We pay our respects to elders past and present and acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are all joining the meeting today. I acknowledge the Turrbal people, the direct descendants of the original owners and custodians of Brisbane. So firstly, I'd like to introduce Dr. Elizabeth Lanyon. She's the chair of the Code Review Panel for the Retirement Living Code of Conduct and has been a practicing lawyer for 40 years with a passion for consumer rights and law reform. Her career has spanned private practice, academia, government policy and regulation and not-for-profit entities. Elizabeth, over to you.
Oh, yes, thank you very much. And I'm delighted that you've all made the time to come. As Deborah said, this is an experiment for us all to get together and for us to exchange information and views and experiences. It's not like the format of our usual webinar where we arrange a panel of speakers and you get to listen and then, get the recording. So we're really wanting to find out from you your insights on these particular problems. Deborah will be recording the session. but that's okay. You can also use the chat box if you want to put some question or comment in the chat. But we much prefer that you just put your hand up using the raise hand icon, and Deborah or Jane, who's also helping us out, will then spotlight you so we can see you. So today we've got 3 topics that we think are relevant that have come across our desks that we don't know how people are approaching them out in the villages. And I'll just say what the 3 are. How do residents cope with evacuation practices? That's the first one. The second, what tactics can we use to alleviate tensions about other residents' illnesses? And the third question is, do your residents have differing views about bird feeding and dogs? And I've always found that the question about dogs is a very pertinent one, and nearly everybody has had dog situations. So we'll finish off on hopefully a lively discussion about dog keeping in villages. But let me start with this question about how do residents cope with evacuation practices? What can you tell us and me about what you do in your village about your emergency management? And do you actually get your residents to practice evacuation from their units and from the common facilities? Well, who wants to start? Can anyone start with an insight for us? All right, Nadine's got a hand up. Good on you. I think you get the elephant stamp for being the bravest and kindest person online. Nadine, tell me about where you are and what you do.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can't
good,
see you
okay.
though. Yeah.
So sorry, I'm working from home today and it's either I'm here or with camera.
I'll listen to you very intently, Nadine. Where's here?
Amana Living, WA. I'm not sure where this is being broadcast from, so Amana Living. We're actually, for the first time in a wee while, actually conducting proper evacuation drills in our villages this year.
Yes.
To help us identify where the needs are. Prior to that, we have held training sessions, but unfortunately, we find that those residents that are interested in it attend. Those residents that might cause an evacuation to go off are the ones that are not attending.
Yes.
On top of that, in one of the villages in particular, I actually spent a lot of time doing floor meetings with each resident and went through the evacuation process. And
Right.
we're looking to tidy this up across the board. We are fortunate that in some of our villages, we actually have volunteer wardens, but in a lot of our villages, we don't.
Yes.
So we've got an emergency plan in each village, but we are actually this year looking at what we need to further enhance residents' ability to evacuate and also perhaps stay in place if there is an active armed offender or that kind of situation.
Yes.
And first aid on top of that as well for residents.
And Nadine, the average size of your villages?
The smallest is 6, the largest is 169 units.
Yes, wow. And are you like the norm in villages that most people are 75 plus?
Yes, quite a lot of our sites are, yes, yeah.
So just what I heard you just say is that you've actually done one-on-one with people, but that's very time consuming. Another strategy might be to actually have volunteer wardens.
Yes, so we have got volunteer wardens. It was only in one village and it was the village that I was looking after at the time. And the reason I did a proper training session, and then those that missed the training session, we did floor meetings.
Yes.
And then there was a few individuals that didn't make those. So that everybody was compliant and understood what was required. And it was probably about 5. So it wasn't too many that I had to catch up with following that.
That's great. Now Gary also gets the elephant stamp for being willing to say something. Tell us where you're from, Gary. Come off mute and.
Yeah, it must be the brave people from the west that put their hands up.
Yes.
So yeah, look, I look after 9 villages here in the west. Smallest is 26, largest is 140. We've got a slightly older demographic per unit.
Yep.
We're actually in the 80s, and we've made some massive changes around the way that we prepare and respond to emergency evacuations, including recently standing down wardens in various villages. We've created an incident management team now that the organisation takes control of, and along with the village manager at each location, the incident management team will actually facilitate whatever needs to occur. It's horrified me last summer in one of our hills-based villages with an approaching fire that I had 90-year-olds running for a hose rather than packing their car and getting out of the village.
Right.
So that's part of it. We still will have 2 information sessions per year in the communal facilities, normally combined with a lunch or a morning tea, which always encourages numbers.
Yes.
But yeah, we will go across the basics in those 2 sessions. But fire evacuation, gas leaking, whatever the incident might be, our incident management team is 24/7. So we both have practices for in-person gatherings, but also virtual gatherings should the event be after hours, 2:00 on a Sunday morning because of a storm damage or whatever.
Yeah. And Gary, all your incident teams, people in your incident teams are all members of staff then?
Yeah, they are. So the incident management team covers not only our 9 retirement villages, but our 8 aged care facilities, our social housing business, and so on. So there's 8 people on the IMT, and it's looking at coverage across all of those business departments, because many of our sites, like I'm sure others online, we're co-located. So if I've got independent living with the village, I've normally got a 90-bed rack as well.
All right. Well, that's really interesting, Gary. Thank you. Liz has jumped in. Hello, Liz. Good name.
Yes, my mother still calls me Elizabeth, so
Yes.
everyone else calls me Liz, but Mum still calls me Elizabeth. Look, I just wanted to share the learnings that I guess we've had over the last 18 months. We've done a massive overhaul of our emergency management program within our retirement villages. We have 24 retirement villages across 3 states, so different jurisdiction that applies across each of those 3 states. We did appoint an external provider to help us with this piece of work, and we've done a significant amount in terms of educating our staff and also the residents. We do twice yearly evacuations, including the residents. It is a volunteer process, so we can't force our residents to join in emergency evacuations, but we do try and encourage a really I guess, a safe environment for our villages. So it is a big part of what we talk about when we go out to villages. We also have members of the residents as their wardens and on the emergency planning committee, which meets twice a year. We do have a centralised crisis management team that is only staff-based, that supports whenever there is a situation. So when Cyclone Alfred, for example, took hold, we had a crisis management team that would support the residents and the sites through that as well. We also really encourage residents to complete what's called a PEEP, which is a personal emergency evacuation plan, in the event that they are not able to evacuate from their homes. We have a range of different sites as well. So some of our sites are high rise and some of our sites are flat. So in a high rise, you have to be able to evacuate down a set of stairs, which often creates problems for older residents with mobility issues. So we work through that quite closely with our residents. And we have the external provider come in about twice yearly to conduct education sessions on a whole range of different emergencies and do twice yearly emergency evacuations. So Some of the other emergencies are a lockdown, if there was an intruder, a bomb scare or a bomb threat, if there was a situation, a civil unrest situation going on outside. So it's all sorts of things like that occur or that can occur that we also try to train our residents on, and also our staff. So we've had a massive focus on this for 18 months, and it's been, so some sites when we first arrived there were like, we don't want to do this, we don't like this, we're not comfortable. They've now embraced it a little bit more because we've talked quite a lot about it, and we've had some external providers provide that expertise on exactly what they might need to do. So
very interesting. Thanks, Liz. Wayne, have you got your hand up?
I do indeed. Hi, everyone. Wayne from So yeah, we have 67 communities across 4 states. We have a bit of a mix of vertical living and more of a broad acre. Smallest community, we're looking at about 60 units. Some of our larger communities, we're looking at 626 units with about 740 residents in there, which makes it a bit tricky. When we have the more broad acres, so as an example, when we have the 744 residents, the way some of our communities were built, they were built in stages. So we've gone to ask people, please put your hand up to be volunteer wardens. In the past, it's worked really, really well. But lately, as our residents are aging a bit more, they're more hesitant because in their mind, they think, well, if there's a fire, I can't pick up Dorothy as an example, who lives next door, and I can't carry her. So even though we've pushed out the communication and the training to say this is not what we expect of you, it's just, look after the muster points if you realise one of your residents in your area, because the muster points are based on, let's say, the end of a road. So, in your street you have following 10 residents, but only 9 have arrived. Then it's a case of, if it's safe to do so, try and find them. If it's not safe to do so, when the emergency services get there, let them know who hasn't arrived. We have the same sort of system as what Liz mentioned earlier. We also do have keep forms, which we keep in our communities that have got a fire panel. We keep it on the fire panel downstairs, so when emergency services arrive, they pull that out and immediately they know where the residents with walkers are, who has oxygen, where they're located. High rise is a bit different. So where we have our high rises like our Carindales and Newstead, we have residents to remain in place. Where it's not safe to do so, they make their ways to the end of the corridors and sit in the emergency evacuation staircases because they are rated. We don't expect them to walk down the stairs. We've said to them the landings and the platforms are big enough, make yourself comfortable, and we will get someone to you as quickly as possible. But I guess it's as much as you try and train, I think residents it's a bit of a mix. You get those that are really willing to help, and you get those that are just afraid that we might ask them to do something outside of their comfort level. So I guess that's what we've been struggling with at the moment. We did have an incident where we're going up probably 18 months ago, where we had quite a big fire in one of our communities where a resident passed away. On the back of that, we've made a couple of changes. Our crisis management team, our escalation. So after our escalations, we've refined those protocols so they know exactly who to call. If you don't get hold of this person within so many minutes, call the next person. So we've put a lot of protocols around that as well, from the crisis management team point of view.
Thanks, Wayne. That's great. I'm just going to conclude this part of the questions with a broader question, which is just on my mind at the moment, which is, do residents become fearful if you talk about a bomb threat or civil unrest or a lockdown? Perhaps most residents would be familiar in your different states with whether it's fire or flood, but I imagine they might get very upset about bomb threats or civil unrest. Has anyone had an encounter with a resident on that score? Someone say yes? I'm partly, I'll leave it at that, but I just, it's on my mind because I was at a property seminar last night in Melbourne. There's been civil unrest in Melbourne with extreme groups, and there's a general level of anxiety, and so that I thought I would ask about that. All right, so now we're going on to a different topic completely, and that is, what tactics can we use to alleviate tensions about other residents' illnesses? This is a question about essentially, have you encountered resident-to-resident disputes which have bubbled up because one resident dislikes or does not understand the particular illnesses of the other resident? Sometimes we think of particularly mental illnesses, but they might be other. We had a situation in one village where someone was taking medicinal marijuana, and that caused a fuss. So has anyone got any insights?
It's legal, isn't it?
Has anyone got any insights with dealing with that set of problems?
I don't think we've got anybody, Elizabeth.
I don't think there's anybody. Oh, yes. Good
Oh,
old
Liz.
Liz
Yep.
was prepared. Thank you very much, Liz.
That's okay. I haven't got a huge amount of, I guess, incidences that have occurred, but I do know there are certain things that do seem to concern or worry residents. So residents that are experiencing dementia can often, other residents that are just, I guess, watching some of that behaviour can really feel a little bit uncomfortable about someone whose dementia might be really starting to take hold and they're still living at home independently, maybe with their partner or what have you. So I think that's been one that I have seen around the sites that we have, where residents feel a little bit uncomfortable and they start to sort of verbalise some of those sorts of things, because obviously dementia can result in all sorts of different behaviours depending on what type of dementia you have. So I've definitely seen that arise, and I guess we also saw, when I was working through aged care and in co-located sites through COVID, there were some really significant and strong responses to residents that might have had COVID and those sorts of things. I think there was a lot of worry and scare tactics. I'm from Melbourne too, by the way, so we did have quite a horrible situation through COVID. So I think that was probably a long-standing memory for me, just watching residents feel very uncomfortable with other residents that might have had COVID and all of those sorts of things.
Thank you for your contribution. I also remember that we were discussing in the panel something, and someone reported that residents were saying to their villagers, don't let any old people in.
It does happen.
You don't want other old people in. So Chloe, hello, welcome. What have you got to say?
Oh, hi. Just really continuing on from what Liz was saying, we've just recently had a number of applications for carers to live in. And you know, we've and I'm thinking a couple of particular instances where we've actually gone down the path of ensuring that the resident has had an assessment by their GP that can be provided to us to basically confirm that there is need for a 24-hour carer, that the carer is registered with the council as a carer, is getting the carers fees, so that it's not just a family member wanting to move in, that there's actually legitimate reasons behind it. Because the query does come from residents then, is about, because that's another person utilising the community centre.
Yes.
You know, or potentially utilising fees, although they're, you know, they're only there during the time, they're not going to stay on afterwards. So we specifically have put in a carer's license agreement, so that as a carer, that it's a very formal relationship that we have with them. And at the moment, I've got a village with 2 of them, but it does lead to questions. But by having a process behind it, we've been able to justify it.
I love that, Chloe. I was going to say that if I was thinking about it in code terms, you know, transparency and certainty and is just the key to it, isn't it? To anticipate the questions you're going to get, have a policy, and be able to, you know, address any queries with such a level of assurance. Well, they are on a, you know, they have a council, you know, we've been assessed, etc. It takes the personality out of it, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's excellent. Oh, thank you so much. Very interesting. Now, who's that there, Annette?
Yes, hi. I've got actually, in response to Chloe, thank you for that. That's really informative. What I would like to ask, the carers license agreement, is that something that your organisation has created, or is because what I'm sort of thinking, that's a great idea, because we do have those sort of challenges where normally it is a member of the family, you know, resident may have had an operation, family moves in for a short period of time, a couple of weeks maybe, to support them in the caring capacity. And we have other residents querying while they're there and so forth. Regarding the carers agreement, is that something that is it mentioned in their contract that if they have someone to stay to be a carer, they would have to have a carers agreement? Or is it something, how have you gone around that? Just so a bit more background on it, if you don't mind.
Certainly. It basically came about because we had the daughter of a resident who came in as a guest but just basically never left. And it came from a resident's complaint, in fact, who saw that this person basically was just still around. It added to an extra car in the driveway. It added, they were coming over to the community centre, they were coming to functions, so people saw this person more, that they were there longer than they were allowed, because the contracts that the resident has a certain time frame. They're allowed up to 60 days in a calendar year in total, and this person just never left. So what we did was I went to the resident and asked him about his guest, and he said, oh, it's my daughter, but she looks after me. I said, so we talked about what sorts of things that she does. And really at that, and I'm going back 2 years ago now, really didn't do that much for him. She does now though. So she went away, but she came back. She actually went and got her Cert 3 to be able to formalize this agreement so that she could come, because this man is now in his 90s, and as he is failing and deteriorating mobility wise, she is now there to support him. So it actually works really well. But our carers license agreement is one that we've created. It is based on our partner deed. So we have other relationships with, but we have somebody who's come in, they've got a de facto relationship, but they haven't added the partner onto the contract, but they're there as a long-term guest. So we've got that. So basically we've done the same license agreement, but we've just interchanged the wording for a carer and put the criteria of what they had to do. But it's more about how they behave in the village, so that they also follow the rules, and that the resident is responsible for them.
That's excellent. Oh, that's very interesting. Any other insights about handling resident to resident situation? What about say Liz or Daniel? Sorry, I was going to, just before I go to Daniel, I was going to say, just think about whether you put in any information or education for residents about dementia or other illnesses. But Daniel, you want to contribute?
Yes, sorry, just getting my camera back on.
Right.
Hi guys.
Hi.
I had similar experiences in the past, and so what we've done was we've put very specific criteria in place. Same as what Chloe just said, you have to do that, otherwise, you know, you have no control over that. And so we had the specific criteria, which we also shared with the residents themselves. And if anybody wanted to come in and say they're a carer, we went through that criteria. And yes, they've got to have a Cert 3, otherwise no. And you know, there's got to be certain things that that you need to assess with the resident as well, to see whether they really need a carer or not. And once you've got all that in place, then yes, that's then an easy thing to do. And more often than not, it is the right thing to do for residents, but there are unfortunately the situations sometimes where children will take advantage of the fact that their parents say, and hey, that's just cheap accommodation, let's go stay with mum and dad. You know, and that's a kind of thing you need to be very careful of. And I was just wondering, I put some comments in the chat box, I don't know if that's been seen, but I was wondering if Chloe would mind sharing that license agreement that they've set up with this group, which I think it will be helpful for all of us.
Thank you. We'll take that offline. We won't put her on the spot at the moment. But Wayne, you had a comment? Oh, you're on mute?
Apologies. Do any, I guess it's more of a question than a contribution. Do any of you have a mix of freehold, leasehold tenancies within the same community, which makes it a bit trickier when it comes to, well, this is my home, I'm freehold, I can choose whoever stays in my unit, whether they be a 3-year-old or a 6-year-old. Has anybody experienced anything similar?
Gary?
Thanks for reading my mind, Wayne, because that's exactly, I'm sitting here in our villages, we do have a mixture, and it's because of that I've been trying to understand the angle of concern from listening to the discussion, whether it's one of keeping numbers in the village down, whether it's the fear of missing out on fees and income or whatever the case may be. Only yesterday I approved an application for an additional occupant because an 87-year-old lady has found love and her boyfriend's going to move in with her. And we don't look at it as a carer situation or what. We look at it as an additional occupant application. And yes, sometimes those reasons for an additional occupant will be it's the son or the daughter who's going to care for mum or dad. The only criteria we have obviously to live in the village is that that additional occupant will be of the relevant age to qualify for living in one of our retirement villages. We actually have, and again, I'm happy to share it with this group afterwards, but we have a legally drafted document that clearly sets out they will have no claim or stake to the lease. They will indemnify both the leaseholder and the operator to any liability or damage while they're occupying and so on. So yeah, we take a different attitude to it. It is absolutely an application-based situation. I think what I heard from the previous example with the daughter who just would never move out, it didn't appear that that was a request or an application to start with. It was just like she went and joined her parents and 60 days later just didn't move out. So that's also where the additional occupant form protects us and the leaseholder, that my 87-year-old yesterday, if her relationship fails and she wants this fellow then to move out, as the operator, I just withdraw my right for him to live in the village in the first place. So it seems to work for us anyway.
Thanks, Gary.
Nothing major. With the conference,
somebody needs to be on.
Happy to do an intro.
Somebody that, thank you. Chloe, I want you to respond. Thank you.
Thank you. Look, absolutely fair comment in regards to the example that I used. We have a lot of additional occupants. We've got second and third occupants, and for us, we basically approve. I've never not approved somebody to move into the village as an additional occupant, but what it's doing is by having an agreement in place and it's a bit probably maybe it's a slightly more formal agreement than what you have in place there, Gary. But it's more about what happens if the existing resident passes away or moves out. And that's what the agreement is about. It's about the rules and how they behave in the village while they're there. But it's more importantly about what happens when the resident moves on. because there's a 30 days leeway after they leave, but they can't. They have. You're absolutely right. They have no right to. They have no rights over the property, but it's more about having that legal definition there to know exactly that they have to then leave the village. I have had an occasion where an additional occupant has then purchased, the daughter has purchased a unit in there as part of the handover, but that's been a very definite close off one agreement, pay out the DMFs and so on, and then start in their own name. So we're very open to these, and we have new spouses, we have de factos, we have Down syndrome family living with residents. So we're very open to that additional occupant.
Great. Well, that's a very interesting conversation. Now I want to talk to our other furry friends. The perennial topic of dogs and bird feeding. I am very interested in this topic because I think it's a very fine balance. The bird feeding one was interesting. One resident loves birds and wants to feed magpies and kookaburras with meat and so on. The resident next door seemed to be very health conscious and very concerned that everything be totally spruce, and was very disturbed by meat in the backyard. So that's the first time I've heard of that particular issue. I'm not sure whether you've met that, but also the dog issue is incredibly difficult because the dogs are so important to people, but when dogs start getting older, they sometimes get a bit crazy. They yap and they are naughty, and it seems to be a very difficult matter to solve, and it seems inevitably that it isn't really a resident to resident dispute. It's inevitably seems to escalate to all residents expecting the operators to sort it. And so I'm very interested to know how people are sorting those issues. I'm very happy to hear some anecdotes. I'm like the stories as well. Annette's going to jump in. Great.
I can cover all of that. We had a resident who, like you say, was encouraging the birds. It was in a apartment in a multi-story village.
Oh.
And the resident above was encouraging the birds, feeding them and so forth. Resident below was not happy with not only the food that wasn't eaten by the birds, but also the bird waste that was coming onto her balcony. And it progressed and progressed. We ended up going to NCAT with it. Well, she took us to NCAT with it. And it's not completely resolved yet, so I'm just going to park that one. But we have multiple challenges regarding dogs and cats. We have a pet policy for residents, and we have a pet application form, and both of those cover that the cat has to have a collar with a bell and has to be inside during the night. Dogs have to be on a lead when they're in the village. When you're walking, they have to be in a lead. You have to clean up after your dogs, obviously. And regarding the owner, if the owner was not able to look after the dog, then they have to name who is going to, like a family member or rescue centre or wherever the dog's going to go if they are unable to look after the dog, whether it's temporarily if they're in hospital or permanently. And what else can I tell you about it?
Tell me about the bird feeding. Is that a phenomenon in Queensland, or are there various villages where people do feed birds or don't feed birds?
We're in New South Wales and ACT, so we've got metro villages and rural villages, and it doesn't discriminate. Tends to be like in the villages where we are single story, it's putting food out for the birds, and particularly if it's not just bird seed, but if it's like meat or whatever, then that encourages vermin of rats, and so then we have complaints from residents that they've seen rats in the village and so forth. And then the multi-story ones, it tends to be the bird seed on the balcony, and the the waste from the bird rather than anything else that's the problem there.
Would you handle it by an actual village rule, like no bird feeding?
So not all our villages are pet friendly. Majority of them are, but there are some that aren't pet friendly, and that's because the residents have voted they don't want pets in the village.
Oh, that's really interesting, because you remember the whole Adele Ferguson thing last year. So when they rang me and I said that the code required people to be explicit about pets or no pets, I mean, they were quite hostile to the idea that there could be no pet villages. So, but I think that's a very interesting thing. Now, Wayne, was it Wayne going to speak? Yes, thank you.
So we've had something similar in our Queensland communities with raw mince being left on grass patches, which was attracting all the flies and the rats. We were fortunate enough that we managed to settle the dispute between the two residents. And as of then, village rules were updated to say feeding birds in common areas and all that. But it definitely was a bit of an issue in some of our Queensland communities. Something that was also a bit of a strange one that came across my desk a few weeks back is to put up on our pet application for a photograph of the pet. We had 1 or 2 residents where they would have a poodle that would then pass away. 2 days later, they'd arrive with a great day. No, this is still Pookie. Well, no, that's not still Pookie. It's a very different dog. So the residents, as their dog was passed away, they didn't want to reapply, so they would just bring a new dog in and claim it's the same one. So now we have photographs of pets on the application form.
So, but you would, you don't have a rule that once the pet dies, then they can't replace it, but they do ask you.
Yeah, they just need to come back to us, tell us that it's been microchipped, fill in the form, tell us it's been desexed, just check just to make sure that everything is.
And they're cheating the system,
yeah,
like
because they don't want to do paperwork.
that famous thing in Vicar of Dibley about the goldfish being replaced. Yeah. Or the budgerigar. Yeah, Kathy, you had a contribution, was it? No, Chris.
Yeah, I was just going to say in regards to we've got a vertical property in that, and we did have a resident that put it to the committee about enticing birds to the property and the gardens. So we had a resident talk from Sustainable Gardening Australia come out to say habitats that they could actually create on their balconies or that with just plants. So moving away from putting bird seed out or that, it was more of a natural habitat the residents could create that could entice the birds. The birds would feed off either the flowers or you know or that. So to us, that wasn't going to be a huge issue if a resident wanted to do that, because it's not obviously putting food out there. It's a natural source, and they're creating their own little garden, which would you know be attractive. So yeah, that was just one way around it.
It's a brilliant idea. What was the name of the group that you got? Sustainability.
Sustainable Gardening Australia.
Fantastic. Oh, thank you. Well, it's a great tip. Kathy, I'm sorry I skipped over you.
No, that's okay. So I'm in Townsville, and we do have we are a pet friendly village, unfortunately. The birds have been an issue here. We had one particular resident who used to put out copious amounts of bird seed, like massive amounts of bird seed all the time. It actually became a slip hazard. So there was so much bird seed out the front of her unit that if you walked on it, it was like ice. You would just, so I had to have a word with her to say that, you know, you need to greatly reduce how much bird seed you're putting there. Then also the bird seed created, like the gardens nearby, of course, the bird seed was popping up and creating a weed problem in the garden beds, which we were looking after. We do have one resident though who does feed the magpies and the plovers that we have here, but she's very particular. She only feeds them at certain times a day, and it's not meat that's left out. So nobody seems to worry too much about her. But the dog situation has always been an issue here. So we do have a pet policy. Again, like was mentioned, you have to have a photo of the dog. There is a limit to the size of the dog, as in how many kilos. And with us, I have to go to the adjoining neighbour, because a lot of our units are actually, there's 4 units all in a row, so they're not all freestanding. So I will go to the adjoining residents and ask their permission. And I make it very clear when somebody's coming in, if they do have a dog, I make it very clear to them and say, if your neighbour says no, then the dog can't come. So I'm very upfront with that right at the beginning, because they literally have adjoining walls. So, you know, everyone says, oh, my dog doesn't bark. And they all do, because they all have the little yapping things. So I make it very clear that that if the neighbours say no, then the dog, yeah, you'll have to rehome the dog or not come into that unit or whatever. Most people have so far been fine with that. I've had one gentleman who had a big Labrador, so it was over our size limit. And he was quite happy. He rehomed his dog to his son. And then a couple of times his son's gone away and he's rung me and said, oh, look, can the dog just come and stay for the weekend? And I've gone, yes, no problem at all. So the dog will come and visit, but he doesn't have the dog here full time. But yeah, so I had one massive arguments with the adjoining neighbour over the back. Their 2 dogs used to be at one another all the time, not a resident in the village, but like I'll say civilian resident over the back. And that was just constant. I would get phone calls 8 o'clock at night from this person in the rental property behind us complaining about dog barking. I would ask the resident to put a barking collar on the dog. This barking collar kept breaking all the time. And it was just a nightmare, like just a nightmare. So we have our issues here. So that's why I'm really hard and fast now, that if your neighbour says no, it means no. Also, that dog approval is for that dog. So if that dog passes away, you need to get the new dog approved. Yes. The only issue I have, though, which a couple of my residents have cottoned onto, get a letter from your doctor saying it's a support dog, and then we don't have a leg to stand on.
Well, that's very interesting. I was just going to say, have you seen that movie, The Friend, with Bill Murray in it? It came out 2 weeks ago. It's set in New York, and it's a Great Dane. And the person ends up looking after the Great Dane. So, and they solve the problem of the restrictions in the New York apartment by getting them as a support dog. So, and if they haven't cottoned on now, they will after watching that movie. They don't have any crocodiles as pets, do they?
No. And cats have to be inside cats.
Oh, yeah. Chloe, you've got something to add here?
Just taking it one step further, in fact, is that we recently reviewed our pet policy, and we've always had photographs of dogs, of pets, because they do tend to, if they go off leash and do run away, at least we know exactly what we're looking for. But we've actually added a section on visiting pets. Because the pet policy used to be that visiting pets were not permitted. But more and more, we've got residents who have had a dog who have been unable to continue to mind them. And so a family member has taken them. But you either let the resident actually goes out and then visits their dog, or the family member would come back and bring the dog with them for an afternoon for tea or whatever. And under our current policy, it meant that couldn't happen. The other thing that happens is that occasionally, you've got a family member that's going away, and the resident wants to mind their family's dog for overnight or whatever. But also then we have therapy dogs coming in as well. And although we had an exception for therapy dogs, it meant that we started looking at other ways that pets provide. And we've got one dog for every 4 residents in one of our villages. We've got, you know, a very, very large pet population. Which is great. So we've got a dog walking club and, you know, other things happening. But visiting pets was something that we had to then relook at. And yeah, we've updated our policy.
That's really great. Wonderful. Kathy, have you got your hand up again? No. I was just going to mention on the score of code complaints that, again, it comes back, in our view, the panel's view, it comes back to transparency. Is there a policy? Is it administered fairly and objectively? And then we did quite a bit of research into a situation where there was a dog barking and the yapping collar and so on. But we took a lead from the way that councils handle very similar problems, and tried to defuse the situation by making sure that the other resident or the other person complaining keeps a diary to actually prove whether the dog is barking or not. So anyway, it's about being as open and transparent as possible. Now we are coming towards the end of the session. I just personally say that I've been absolutely delighted with the conversation, and I think we've all gleaned some really, really interesting insights and some great tips. I'm just going to open it up. And Deb's here, you can see her on the screen. We're very interested in any other topics that you might like to address in, I think we're going to do it bi-monthly, Deborah. So
yeah, we are doing bi-monthly.
Roughly between 2 and 3 topics. Is there anything else that is on your mind that it would be valuable to talk about? Oh, jumped in Wayne. Thank you.
If we could talk about residents moving in with firearms. So
oh my goodness.
It started now.
Wow.
2 this year already, where the residents don't disclose until they're removed into the community, and then you find out when they come ask you which wall they can secure their safe to for their 10 firearms.
Right. I'll definitely put that on the. Wow, that's taken me by surprise. That's a good one.
Yeah, something new for us as well.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? That's Kathy. Thank you. You're on mute.
We actually have in our contract that you can't have can't have weapons in the village. That's actually already written in the contract.
Yeah.
In ours as well, they've already moved in, so they don't disclose until they've moved in, everything's signed and sealed and delivered. That's what we've done.
Great. Yeah, well, we'll definitely come back to that, Gary. I'll also do a bit of delving around. Any other topics that would be, Gary, you're there?
Yeah, look, by chance, I had my monthly meeting yesterday with all of my village managers, and the top of the list from all of them in regards to their challenges day to day was ageing in place and how we can better support. So if that could be considered for a future meeting, that would be great.
I couldn't agree with you more, Gary, and I'm going to ask Deborah also to put on. I'm still worried about whether, you know, as we keep hearing that as residents are ageing in place, quite a lot of the initiatives that residents when they were younger did for each other, they're not able to do. And perhaps the burden is falling on fewer people. And perhaps there's also a problem with residents' committees petering out. So I'd quite like to hear what your thoughts are on what we do about that. So all good. Thank you, Gary. Top of the list. Anybody else?
Well, you've all got my email address, obviously the code administrator. So any topics that you would like to bring up and talk about at these get-togethers, just email them through to me, and I'll sort out an agenda. I would also like some feedback of how you felt this went. I'm really passionate that we should get a little community going and together, you know, sharing our experiences. We will all learn from this. It'll give me more information as well, because I'm still only 18 months in. So please email me and just of how you felt the format went. I think it actually ran smoothly. So, but any suggestions, always very, very welcome. And I would also like to give a very, very big thank you to Elizabeth. I mean, she's just, she knows everything. So,
not at all. I
yeah.
certainly didn't think about firearms.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Just before I close, I'm going to float another topic, and could you just give a bit of feedback to Deborah by email? I'm quite interested in the concept of what millennials, the baby boomers coming into the villages want, and how you're coping with them being more demanding, wanting better service, better data support. Are they a different type of person, and how are you coping with them? Do you think that's a goer as a topic? Some people are nodding, but if you can give the feedback to Deborah. Well, in that case, I am going to say thank you also to Deborah and Jane, and I'll leave you all, and good fortune over the weekend, and go Pies. Bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.